This is a homepage, this is a page on our Google Help website under the Google Workspace area, and Classroom is one of those tools that we will be going over today. With that, you'll notice it's kind of a still work in progress. Once this video is done, it will be posted in that big black box that says the video is unavailable. It will be there hopefully by tomorrow. But the portion of the resources that I want you to access today is the slide deck that is embedded inside the Google Help page. So if you want to follow along, again, totally optional, go ahead and bring up that slide deck if you choose to. So today's format is going to be very similar to the Google Keep and the recent one we did with Google Chrome. It's going to kind of be going back and forth on the slide deck. We'll do some slide deck, then demo, slide deck, and then some demo. It just seems easier for me to break it down in categories so we can post it on the YouTube. So we'll be going back and forth, but we will be starting with the slide deck here at the very beginning. So maybe some of you do or do not know, but what Google Classrooms, we're going to teach you all the following items. I also want to take at this time that this is more of a beginner Google Classroom. Google Classroom has a lot of bells and whistles, and it can get, there's a lot of workarounds, I would say, to make it maybe fit your business needs. We will not be going over a lot of those little innuendos and hiccups that maybe could help make your process better, but we're going to give you the basic understanding, and once you understand the basics, more than likely you'll be able to figure out some of the workarounds. If not, you have me as a resource. And I also have a lot of resources throughout the state of Iowa for those who have already implemented Google Classroom for other purposes. So just kind of keep that in mind, keep your eyes open, and kind of have an open mind during this process and training today. But we will be breaking it down in these categories today. I also want to give you my honest opinion. This is my first time doing a Google Classroom training in this style, so I'm always a little more rambly when I do that. So I'll give you that thing. I've trained Google Classroom numerous times, so don't worry about that. I've trained it numerous times, and I've used it for almost 10 years. So with that, Google Classroom was created. What is Google Classroom? Google Classroom was created to assist teachers and students in education. For a long time, it was only available for Google for Education. That's where it goes to my experience. My background is from Google for Education. I was working in a school district for several years, and Classroom was a great tool for those educators, teachers in my school district that I was working for. But I was really excited in 2018 when Google Classroom became available in Google for Enterprise. We are the SKU Google for Enterprise. That is the license that we purchase for the state of Iowa, which is the best of the best SKUs that we can actually even purchase for the state of Iowa. And with that, we get the option to use Google Classroom, and has so since 2018. So as I stay on this slide deck, for those who have never attended my training before, what happens here is you will always find, not always, but most of the times find a Learn More button on each slide. If you see that Learn More button, that means exactly that. Click on that Learn More button, and you will learn more about that particular topic on that particular slide. So if you want to learn more about what I just provided you in the slide, please feel free to dive deeper by clicking on the Learn More button. The video icon is for a later time. This is where I will post the YouTube video chapter right there for those that want to watch this video at a later time. So that is currently in the live stream mode, not an active button, but once the video is done, it will be an active button to get you to this right area of this particular slide. So what is Google Classroom? I think it's best described in the following options. When should I use Google Classroom? I would say it is a kind of like a learning management system. It's not a true LMS for those trainers and educators that know what an LMS is, a learning management system. But what you can do, and I have done, is use it for a training course. Like maybe the training course is Google Workspace. You could do that as well. It's a very collaborative space where you can have the students post things, teachers post things. You can assign things and so much more. And you can see there's other options here for how you could use Google Classroom. I'll give you some scenarios that I have known being done in the state of Iowa. One agency will use Google Classroom to send to their volunteers to actually submit what requirements they need. So that's one option. It can be also in another state, uses it for HR. I know we obviously have Workday, but it does allow them to do some onboarding training that way as well. We're a little bit different in the state of Iowa, where we're not all Google Workspace, so that does make it more of a hindrance. And I know like DAS has its only LearnSoft as well. But this is a great way to be used for the public sector or the public if they have a Google account. I know other states have used it for like emergency systems if they all have a Google account. So there's a lot of ways you could use it instead of a concept of an educational module, but it does definitely work really well for a type of education reason. So again, there's just some ideas. Again, I have used it to implement hands-on training, especially when agencies switched from a network drive to a Google Drive. I make it a one-stop shop for them to learn more about Google Drive, and it's just kind of their own custom curriculum. That's an example that I have done. So it's a great way to share information within an organization. However, there is some limitations of Google Classroom. I've actually received this question several times when we are working with people outside the state of Iowa that have a Google account. First thing I want to point out, to use Google Classroom, you have to have a Google account. So this will not work for our agencies that are on Microsoft Office. This would not be really interoperable at all. So you have to have a Google account. Now that's the one requirement, but the other thing is there's different SKUs. We told you we are on the SKU Enterprise Plus. However, due to education, we cannot work with education SKUs. So if I was trying to set up a Google Classroom with the Atlantic Community School District, they would not be able to join my Google Classroom. It's just something that Google will not allow. I don't want to go into the reasons, but don't worry, we have a resource for you. So before you even think this is a tool or an option for you, I really want you to look at who is your audience for this classroom. What I can tell you, it really works well for like, if I wanted to do a classroom for OCIO users, right? I know all my OCIO users have a Google account. I know they're all in the state of Iowa SKU. I also, if I know I'm transitioning from an agency A, and they're moving to Google, and they're going to have, they are moving from a network drive to a Google Drive, I know they have a Google State of Iowa account. So I can create, that's my audience. But I'd be really hesitant to create one for an education SKU, or even outside anybody for the state of Iowa that don't have a Google, or does have a Google account, outside that doesn't have a Google account. Because you can see there's other issues there too. It gives you a matrix of who can join and who can't. Some administrators like John and Chad will also turn it off that allow people outside our domain. We have really opened it up. So we do allow people with personal Google accounts to join classrooms. That's how Agency A allows volunteers. Volunteers will create a Google account, like Jessica at gmail.com. They can then join the Google Classroom. We allow people with personal Google accounts to join our classroom. So that is a workaround, a valid workaround. If you're working with the public sector, you would then need to say, hey, you have to have a Google account. This is how you create a Gmail account, and then they can join our Google Classrooms. So those are some things if you are working. I really ask, if you're really stuck on this and you're like, well, I'm not sure, I think this will work for my business need, I want you to reach out to me. I'm going to ask you more questions of who your audience is and so much more. And I would really try to help you and dive down, but I don't want to spend much more time on that. But there is a resource for you to learn more about the limitations of working with people with different SKUs. Okay. So again, just kind of maybe briefly look over that. Again, it's very important to check that out. This is an easy one. How do you access Google Classroom? That's our next topic. Well, you would go up to the waffle, and feel free to do this on your own. Go to the waffle up the top right-hand corner, and you should find, I call it the green chalkboard. It's the classroom icon as shown, or you could go to classroom.google and access Google Classroom. So again, it's very similar how we access our apps within Google Workspace by clicking on the waffle and then locating that particular app. And this particular app is Google Classroom, and I also call it the green chalkboard. There's important roles within Google Classroom that we want to discuss today. And I want you to make sure you notice these icons, as we will use these icons or avatars throughout today's training to know what role we're in when we're particularly working with Google Classroom. Oh, nice, got kicked out. I must not have signed in, but I did. All right, let's try that again. Sorry about that. This role is a student. So we can all go back in time. We've all been students either in college or junior college or in our elementary all the way to high school. We were students, but we are also students sometimes in adult learning, right? So student is the one that is learning. So that is one role. So you have the student that wants to take the course, could be a coworker that's trying to learn more about mandatory reporting, whatever the case may be, but you have a student role. That's pretty self-explanatory. You also have a teacher role, someone that is instructing and facilitating. So in my case, if I'm teaching Google Workspace, I'm the teacher and you guys are now my students to learn more about Google Workspace, right? So we all have different roles within Google Classroom. Those are important. When you are a student, you're going to join the classroom. That's the action you would take. You would join the classroom. If you're a teacher, you are going to create your curriculum and create that classroom. So those are the two things you need to be aware of. When you go to access Classroom, you might be in a student hat or you might be a teacher hat. It depends, right? So keep in mind, if you're a student, you're joining. If you are a teacher, you're going to be creating the classroom. We can now create, or not now, we are going to talk about creating and customizing a classroom. So we can access Google Classroom by going to the waffle and then selecting Classroom. And then you have this plus button where you either hit create or you actually join. Well, I'm going to tell you for right now, we're going to focus on the teacher hat. So I want to make note that you notice the little teacher icon up here. This is the hat we're on right now. So I am the teacher and this is what we're talking about. So if I'm the teacher, I can create a classroom. Pretty easy to create a classroom, but I like to give some fun tips and tricks. On this particular slide, you have a button to allow you to customize your header template, which is the action we're going to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a classroom and customize my header to customize my look in my classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm in Trainer 13 today. Trainer 13 is the teacher today. And I'm going to go up to my waffle and I'm going to go locate Google Classroom. And sometimes I always forget this. Oh, there it is. Okay, there it is. So in this particular account, this Trainer 13 already has 2 accounts. This one, or 2 classrooms, excuse me. This one, she is a student. Okay, so she's a student to training classroom, but on this one, she is a teacher. Okay, so you will see that you can be both hats in Google Classroom. So just so you know, if you're the first time accessing Google Classroom, it might ask you, are you a student or a teacher? Go ahead and click teacher if you choose to. You can be both in our environment, so don't worry about it. So you can select either one and you'll be fine. It's just kind of a way to collect that. I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button and I'm going to be the teacher and I'm going to create a class. And I'm going to go ahead and call it Google Workspace Demo. I'll just say training. Google Workspace Training. You can get really narrowed down here, section, subject, room. You can see where this is very important in the education scheme. But for me, I don't usually put too much into that. But I just have to have a name, which I have already done, and I'm going to hit create. So now I'm going to work on customizing my classroom, and I just want to kind of add some of me in this particular Google Classroom. You'll notice that it does give you a chance to customize. I'm just going to hit next here. They're going to tell me all about these things. You'll notice there's a customize option. So what I've done for you is inside this slide deck, I have a customized header template. If you click on this, you can go ahead and make a copy. Obviously, I'm not going too fast to follow along today, but this for future. I have provided instructions. Once you make a copy, it is yours to do something with it. So you can rename it, obviously, and call it Google Workspace Classroom Header, right? Whatever the case may be. but you can follow these instructions. But this is a Google drawing, and this is the exact size that you need. So I'm going to File Page Setup, and I'm just going to show you that the size that the classroom header needs to be is 1600 by 400 pixels. So once you have that size, which is why I give you the template to give you the exact size, you can adjust it, tweak it, use Google Drawing to make it work for you. Obviously, you probably don't want my avatar Bitmoji on your particular one, but this would be where I'd say send you to Google Drawing training, and then you can adjust this. But it's pretty self-explanatory how to use Google Drawing. Once you have updated that Google Drawing, you do need to get it into an image format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and file, download. I don't care. It doesn't matter if it's a PNG or a JPEG. Either way, you file, download. Now it's stored on your local computer, and you're going to go back to Classroom and choose Customize. Don't worry, if you don't want to do all that extra work, you can select a theme. You can do other customizations on here. You can select a different photo, and Google's got some templates just for you. You'll notice that most of the images are on the right-hand side because the name of the classroom is always on the left. That's why my template is the way it is as well, just to make sure that we don't overlap on that. But this one, I'm going to go ahead and upload the photo that I have used or downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and upload that. And then I'm just going to take the handles and make it just expand. And once I get that expanded and selected, I'm going to go ahead and select theme. Obviously, I can change the color theme. I'm going to go ahead and stick to blue, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So it's got the title of it saying Google Workspace. Now you can see why the real estate on the left-hand side is free. And then I've kind of got my little options there as well, or images on the right-hand side. So now I've customized it. It's a really good visual indicator for the teacher to know, or the students to know, and myself to know that I'm in the Google Workspace. It's got some indication that I'm working with Google Workspace. So that's how you customize and create a classroom. So we've talked about that now. Again, definitely check out that more if you want to. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to stay on the slide here for a minute. And so we're going to tour the stream. The stream is kind of like your landing page when you go to Google Classroom. So we're going to talk about what you see on the stream page. The first thing is you'll notice the very first thing I want to point out is the tabs up at the top, the menu items. So look for the little green icons here. I'm going to kind of go through this as an animation here. You'll notice we have the stream. This is where you would put post to communication and so much more on here. Okay. It's the landing page for the students and for yourself. Okay. So it's kind of like a blog format. Okay. The other thing, the most used portion of Google Classroom for the teacher is Classwork. This is where you would set up your curriculum and so much more. We'll dive deeper, but this is a very important page for both the student and the teacher. So Classwork page is a very popular tab within Google Classroom. People is not the most popular tab. It's more important at the beginning when you're inviting students to be here or co-teachers to be part of your classroom. But really after that, it's not used as much when I use it. But it's a great place to look for sure to know who is participating in your Google Classroom. The next one is grades, which is sometimes I grade things or I return things. We'll talk more about that. But as a teacher, you do have a so-called grade book option. That is another important menu tab at the top. So with that, first thing I do when I have anybody go to Google Classroom is to actually look at the tabs at the top, because that is your main menus to navigate through those different pages. The other thing that you need to do at the very beginning of your Google Classroom, which we'll talk about next, is click on the gear and adjust your settings. We'll talk about that in the next slide, but that is where you'll locate that as well. So we know gear equals settings. You can customize, which we just did, to give it some of your own branding if you choose to, and your own individual authentic self. So you can also adjust your stream settings here, which I do encourage, which we'll show you in a minute, but just know when you open that, you do have an option now, this is new, to update your stream settings. Again, I will encourage some best practices there in a minute. And then obviously this is where it's more of a blog concept where you can post and announce things here like, hey, don't forget to join the the meeting that we have at such and such time, or don't forget to do this, or hey, we have a pumpkin patch activity coming up. So the other thing then is you do have some things over here, such as generate meet. Last time I tested this didn't really work very well. I'm not sure if that's been rectified or not. I haven't tested that out. I do apologize, but you do have an option to generate a link. Class code, which is the code that students can join. That is an option. It's posted there. And then you have your upcoming work that needs to be done. Oops, sorry. I do have 2 different posts here at the bottom. So if you want to learn more about posting announcement or setting up student permissions, you can do that as well. Give me one moment here. I need to pull something up I forgot to do. So I'm going to just step back into the classroom just for a second, and I just want to show you an example of posting an announcement on the stream. So I have a document in front of me that I'm not showing all of you. It's just kind of my working document and my script, but I don't want you guys to watch me type all day. So I'm going to go ahead and click on for announcement, and you'll notice you can make, if you have multiple classrooms, in this case I can make the same announcements for multiple classrooms. This would be very helpful for a teacher, right? If they had 6 English classes and they're making the same exact announcement, don't forget your book tomorrow, or whatever, that would be very helpful for them if they have multiple classrooms. So you can select that if you want to have that same post go on multiple classrooms. I'm not going to do that. You can also, maybe you only want to send it to a select few. You can also do that. In this example, I don't have my students set up yet. But you can just see that you do have some rich text options here. I just copied and pasted in here. But you do have some bold, italicized, underline. You can also attach Google Drive, YouTube, upload file, and add link. So keep that in mind. You do also can save it as a draft. So maybe you're not quite done with this post and you just kind of want someone to look at it, or a co-teacher, or you want them actually schedule it. You can do that as well. Or you can go right here and click post. You have options. So all 3 of those are great options. I strongly encourage you, when you are in Google Classroom, is to click on the drop down, because there's always different options for you. So don't forget to do that throughout Google Classroom. So I'm just going to go ahead and click post. Again, I'm not going to go over rich text in that. That's pretty self-explanatory. We've used to that option. So now it's a post inside here and you're good to go. So we've made a post in here. So that's how you do that, and so much more. You can always reuse a post too. This is an example. If I could pull up a post from a different classroom, I can go ahead and select that post so I don't have to start all over with that post. So reuse a post is something that you might want to do if you have five classrooms of the same information. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in that because I'm not sure if that applies to you, but just know that that capability is there. Again, Classroom can be used for multiple things. So again, just kind of know that that feature is there. Again, just to remind you, this is more of a beginning course just to show you some of the features and see how you could or could not use it in your business need. The next thing is we're going to tour settings. I don't really have any animations on this particular one, but as anything, if you've been in any of my trainings, it's always important when you're using an app within Google Workspace and you have never tested it out before, or you just haven't checked it out for a while, it's always good practice to check out the settings within the app. Google Classroom is no different. You need to check the settings. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through the settings within the classroom that we just created and just kind of give you some of my things that I find that help me. But again, it's up to you and your business needs. So with that, you can always find, going back to the classroom, you can go up to the gear and select settings and it brings it up. You'll notice that we've already seen this information of class details when we created the Google Classroom. Again, I could add a description, and sometimes I do, and section, room, and subject. This is probably better if you do have multiple sections, right? The more information you have, the more sections you have, the better it is to determine what one you're working on, right? So there is that information. General is where do you want them to have students join by a code? Now, we will be a student hat later of this training. We will put the student hat on. But this is depending on how you are going to initiate the classroom. Are you going to do this in person? If that's the case, maybe just having the code presented on the screen would be a great option. So you can do that as well. But you could also send them a link. That's an option that I do. There is a hyperlink. So if I would copy this link, log into a different account that's not Trainer 13, they can join via link by clicking on that hyperlink. So keep that in mind. Like, it's no different than joining a Google Meet. You have a link that joins a Google Meet, same concept. We have a link that lets you join a Google Classroom. You do have the class code. You do have an option to display the code. So this goes back to the in-person thing, or even on a Google Meet. Please join this Google Classroom and you be part of this environment. So I don't really do much with that. It's just depending on how I'm going to send the information out. It depends many times. Stream. This is where I do adjust. I do adjust this because I think the stream can get very busy and clunky if you're posting a whole bunch of assignments in Classwork, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, or how do you want to moderate that stream? Are you really making it a collaborative environment? I don't know what you want to do with that stream. Think of it as a blog announcement thing within that environment of Google Classroom. I don't usually want students collaborating within that area. So I will only say teachers can post and comment on that stream. That's up to you. You determine your environment. The other thing is where I think it gets really messy is when you post inside Classwork, then all of that gets posted in the stream. Well, sometimes I'm posting 5 things at once. No one wants to go through the stream and go to Classwork. How are you going to organize your classroom? How are you going to instruct it? I like to hide my notifications, but again, that's up to you. How much are you going to be posting? Like I said, this was an issue at one time, but again, we don't have a lot of people that use that portion of it. As I said, this is beginning training, and I don't think many of us are looking for this as a grading option. I'm not teaching to a bunch of educators in the sense of you've got an A+ today, and so on. But you could do some grading calculations in here. You can add categories. You can see where as an educator, this is very important. But again, I'm going with the 80-20 rule. We're not grading stuff right now, but please know if this is an option for you. Once you have adjusted your settings, you can go ahead and click Save. So we've toured the settings now. We're just kind of moving along. We're getting to the fun stuff here. This is probably the most important page, in my humble opinion, is the Classwork page. So you do have up at the top, again, Classwork page. Now, remember, we're still in the teacher hat right now. Everything's different in the student view. We're not a student right now. We're focusing as creating a classroom. And with that, you have the option to create an assignment, quiz, question, material, reuse, post, and topic. So we're going to talk about each one of these in a minute. So you have the option of a drop-down to create any of those options. You also have a Google Calendar that is tied to this classroom, okay? So actually, once you create a Google Classroom, you actually automatically get a Google Classroom calendar. So in this example, this calendar or this classroom was called Training Demo, and then there is a calendar in my calendar called Training Demo. So anything that I put an assignment with a due date will also appear on that Google Calendar. So again, Google really likes to be interoperable within their Google Workspace, different apps. This is a prime example of that. So you have a calendar, you have a classroom when you create a Google Classroom. Now you also have a Google Drive infrastructure. Anytime you are joined or created a classroom, you have a new folder called Classroom, okay? Then underneath that classroom folder, you have your classes. You might be a teacher in that class, or you might be a student, but you will see a new folder within the classroom folder in your Google Drive. So you'll see that in the classroom folder, then you have, in this particular case, I have a training demo class Google Drive folder. So I'll show you those two things here in a minute, but I want you to know, you create a classroom, you also get a calendar, and you get a Google Drive. If you join one, you're going to have a classroom as a student, you're going to have a calendar, and you're also going to have a Drive folder. Now, as a student, you're not probably going to look at the Drive folder very much, but it's just knowing that it happens, okay? So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. So let's go to the Classwork page, and I just want to point out this is the Create button. We will dive deeper in each one of those in a minute. But I just want to go ahead and click on the Google Calendar. Now, I am a teacher right now. I'm in the teacher role. So when you're in the teacher role, you have permissions to manage that classroom. So if you go down here, it's called Google Classroom Training Demo, was the name of the class that I created. If I click on the three dots, I click on Settings, you will notice who has access. When you create a Google Classroom, you also have blindly created 2 Google groups. You don't realize that, but you have, okay? So you have the training demo, which is the students in this case, and then you have the teachers that can make and change edits. So the students, if I was logged as a student, would be able to see all event details, and the teacher can make changes to edit. So right now I have not added a co-teacher, but I could, and they would have the same access. Obviously, you can adjust it from here, but you're not going to do that. But just being aware that that is automatically blindly shared to them without you doing anything besides create a classroom. The other thing is same concept within the Google Drive folder. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Google Drive folder. This is just a quick way to access it, right? I told you if you join a Google Classroom or create one, you have a folder called Classroom. I'm just going to go back a step, and you can see these are all the classes. I'm either a student or I am a teacher, depending on that, right? So with that, you can see the Google Class Workspace Training one. It has a folder. Nothing's in there yet because I haven't created any documentation in my Classwork page. But just be aware, same concept. If you look at the eye, it shows that teachers can edit. And then once you start adding content within your classroom, it will blindly share it to those groups depending on which permissions you give. A little too much, but it's important to know where all that stuff is also stored in there. So think of sometimes Google Classroom as a site, right? If you're creating a new site to some degree, we always say, have a good Google Drive infrastructure. Shocker. I say that all the time. Well, if this is another reason why I'm not far from the truth there, right? Google Classroom is doing the same thing. They're using Drive as the hub to store all this information, and then you're distributing it the way you want, okay? So I'll be aware of that. So then the other thing that we have is we have people. People are people, right? You have roles. Remember the role of a teacher? The teacher can add another teacher and add another teacher. I think the limitation, don't quote me, I think is 25 teachers, but that's a lot of teachers. That's a lot of people involved there. But co-teachers are important. Jolene is always, John has been sometimes a co-teacher in some of my Google Workspace environments when I'm training, right? I need them to be that teacher role for me so they can have the same access as I do. So you can invite teachers under the People tab. You can also obviously invite students. You can do option 1, invite by code. Option 2, you could do invite by link, or you can send them an email, your choice. So you can invite students that way. So again, really easy. Let's just quickly do that so we can demonstrate that. So I'm going to go back to Classwork, or Classroom, excuse me. I have a habit of doing that. I'm going to go to the People tab. And if I want to add a teacher, I'm going to go ahead and just add myself. I could go ahead and click on the icon, right? I just did that a little fast, but that's pretty self-explanatory. Invite teachers. And now a teacher, I'm adding a co-teacher. And I'll go ahead and add my own email. You find their email and go from there. So you do not have an invite link option for teachers, which is more of an individual basis, right? But you can do students by clicking add students. You have the option of inviting link. We also saw on the stream page where the code was posted. So you have many ways to do it, but this is in the people. You can copy this link, paste it in an email saying, hey, I want you to join this classroom by clicking this link. They could do that. Or you could also go ahead and type in their email. Again, your choice of how you want to present the classroom. But in this case, I'm going to type in trainer 7 and I'm going to hit invite. So trainer 7, which we will be later in today, she is my student. I'm going to go ahead and just add another one so you can see multiple people. So we look like we have 2 students involved. You do have some actions in here. If you click on one, obviously there's not much to do right now, but you can email them from here. You can remove them and some other things there as well. So you do have some actions once you select a particular person, or you can do select all and take action at once, which email would be a very helpful tool within this people option. Okay. All right, there should be some audio. Give me some chance here, but we're going to watch this video here real quick. It's a short one.
All assigned items can be found on the Classwork page, which is at the top of your class page. Click the Create button in the top left corner to get started. When you create an assignment, you can use resources from Google Drive or YouTube to assign student work. This provides students an easy path to create and turn in their assignments directly in Google Classroom. When you create a quiz assignment, Google Classroom creates a blank quiz using a Google form and attaches it to the assignment. You can then edit the quiz and add questions of different types before you assign the quiz to students. Materials allow you to share documents and resources with your class, but don't require students to turn anything in. You can even reuse a post created for another class.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting again and get me to full screen. I do have one more video down the road, but not for a little bit. So, okay, make sure I'm sharing my right screen. Okay, so that was a quick little video. There is a lot of resources, which I'll show you at the end, where you can learn more and take your own course if you want, but that's kind of where I took it, and there's the source for that. But the very next thing we're going to do is create a topic. So let's think of it. I want you to think right now, we're going to be creating, we have a Google Workspace training that we're creating a classroom for. And so topics would be such as Gmail, calendar, Drive, etc., Keep, Classroom. There's tons of topics, right? It's your curriculum. It's your objective 1, your objective 2, your objective 3, whatever the topics are. I know another agency uses Google Classroom for their wellness, right? So it could be January, February, March, April, May, June, July. That's their topics, right? So it's depending on how you're going to use your Google Classroom for that. But topics are your curriculum if you want to talk education, right? So we're going to go ahead and show you how to create a topic. And again, we're going back and forth here today. Just seems easier. So Classwork is right here. We've already kind of did a tour, but we talked more about the create button. And so even though the topics are it's kind of like that's the first thing. It's your skeleton of your design. What are you planning on talking about? Again, we're not going to make a full-fledged classroom, but I do want to show you some objective 1 and 2 and just kind of show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and we're choosing the topic. I'm going to go ahead and do objective 1, and that is Gmail. And the next topic, I'm going to just go ahead and hit topic again, and I'm going to do objective calendar, right? So now you'll notice then it's out of order, right? In my opinion, objective 1 should be at the top, objective 2 should be second in line, right? Good news, we do have the drag and drop option in Google Classroom, so I can hold down objective 1 and then drag it in the order or the place that I want. So you do have drag and drop. You do have some options to rename by clicking on the 3 dots. You have the option to delete, and you do have the option to move up or move down as well. But again, you can see then you have the topics. Even Google's given you a reminder that right now, if a student joined this classroom, they would not see objective 1 or objective 2. Why? For this reason alone. Students who will see this topic once work has been added. There is no work added. So this is kind of like your curriculum adding content, right? You have your planner. This is the content that I'm wanting. And now I have a place for my contact to save drafts to. It's kind of your binder in a sense, right? So that's for topics. You also can see it's like a table of contents concept. You can click on objective 1. You actually then can go and look at it here if you choose to. You can also go to objective 2 and just kind of look at your curriculum that you would have for that particular topic. There's many words you can use for this, but I think that can all kind of give you an idea how you would use it. So topic is pretty easy. But if I was doing one, a lot of times the topics are the very first things I create. So that's what I just showed you, because then you know what you're doing throughout the classroom, right? Everybody kind of knows the big highlighted chapters, right? The next thing we're going to discuss is assignment. This is probably where we're going to spend a little bit more time on. There's many different ways you can do assignments. You'll notice the video actually is a little outdated because they do have a new look in Classroom, which I haven't seen because I haven't been in Classroom for a little bit. But you do have the new option to attach items, Drive, YouTube, create, upload, and link, which I think is more visual appealing to our end users. So first thing you would do is you hit the create assignment, you title it. And I will give you a little tip. I love using Emoji Wikipedia. I like to give it a little visual indicator sometimes. So you can always go to emoji. I can't spell, but it'll find it. But I like to get emojis from here and sometimes add that in my title, just to give it a little more visual appealing concept. So this is just a little fun thing that I won't be demonstrating, but you can kind of see if you've been in any of my classrooms. I love the emoji option. So once you create the title, then you put the instructions. I like to keep it short and simple, like please review the material and mark it done. Tell them what they need to do. But again, could be that's where the detailed information is in there, but you don't have to. You can see the word in optional. Then you attach. Then you say, is this for a classroom? You can actually select multiple classrooms. Again, not going to talk much about that, but again, if I was an English teacher with 6 classes, this assignment goes to all of them. How beautiful does that make my life, right? You can also, if I was a teacher and there's a student with an IEP or something, or this particular assignment only goes to these 5 students, but not the other 5, you can actually determine what students should have access to this particular assignment. So you have some ways to actually distribute in different ways. You have the option to add point value. Again, I'm not going to focus too much on the point value grading because I don't think it's used much, but you do have the capability of adding point value. Again, you can adjust that. Due date, if you add a due date, it's also then going to go to your Google Calendar, right? So if the due date is Friday, you then would be on the Friday Google Calendar as well. It's also nice to use due dates. I strongly encourage that because it kind of tells them what's upcoming, when is it due. So if I were going to do this and there's a true due date, put the due date on there. So if this is a fiscally responsible thing, December 31st needs to have this done, put the due date on there so they can see their upcoming events. The topic is then it's going to be, in our case, either objective 1 or it's going to be objective 2. You can create a topic on the go. So if we did not make objective 3, which we did not, I can create a topic on the go there as well. But what we're going to do next is kind of giving you an idea of all the options. Oh, I forgot the little drop down at the top. Sorry, squirrel syndrome. If you click on the drop down, this is very common. It's different per option, but you have the option assign, schedule, save as draft, or disregard. So know that you have that same thing, same feature concept, I should say, as you did inside the post announcements. So with that, we're going to go ahead and create some different types of assignments within our Google Classroom. So we're going to go here. Our first assignment is we have a video and a doc we want them to watch and review. That's our assignment. So watch this video and review this doc. Okay? Sounds like a great training module, right? Watch, review. That's our assignment that we're going to do. So let's think about that particular assignment and how would that teacher post it? So first thing, we know it's assignment. I want them to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and click create assignment. I'm going to name that assignment. Now you have to bear with me. I want to make sure I get this right. Watch and learn. Now, I'm not going to spend time on grammar, but you could say watch. You would give them detailed instruction. watch and review. And I like to say sometimes that's action items. That's something I use. And then I say, don't forget to mark it as done. Okay. So now we made it. Here's the instructions. Here's the title. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay. I have a YouTube video and I have a Google Doc. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my doc first. I'm going to go to my Google Drive. Okay. And I have it already stored in my Google Drive already. I have it already stored in a folder called training. So I created a Google Doc and there's my final Gmail objectives. Okay. So that is the document I want them to review. So I'm just selecting a Google Doc inside here. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, inside this document, I also have a YouTube video. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this YouTube video. Okay. But now I want to add that YouTube video as a separate attachment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on YouTube. And since I copied that URL earlier, again, you would get this on YouTube and copy the URL or search. You have an option to search, right? All right. So I want them to watch the beginning Gmail training. Perfect. Gives you a nice picture, gives you all the descriptions. You obviously could have searched for Bill Nye, the science guy, if you want to, right? So now we've got both watch and learn. We've got an instructions, and now we've got 2 attachments. Now, all I said on that document was to review. Did I ask them to edit? Did I ask them to make their own copy? No, I didn't. So what permissions should I do? I will leave it as is. The students can view, and that's all I want them to do, right? But there's other options, which we will talk about next. But that's the assignment, watch and learn, right? Review and learn. So now we go over here and make some decisions. Again, I could post to a second classroom. I'm not going to mention this each time, but I could. And I could, if I had all my students enrolled yet, which we'll do later, then I can do the selected. I'm going to go ahead and keep a point value just to show you how that works. And I am going to put a due date of Friday. And I'm not going to put a time, but I could. You'll notice in the point value going back here, you can choose ungraded if you choose to. The topic is important. Notice you can't create a topic on the go, like I mentioned, but I would definitely put this in the right topic. This is still Gmail training. I'm going to go ahead and click Objective 1 Gmail. And then I'm going to choose assign, but I do want to point out you do have the drop down. I could schedule this and do it for Thursday. I could save it as a draft, not quite done, got interrupted. I could disregard it, or I can just go ahead and click assign. Okay, so now it's assigned, and you will see that it has a new icon here and a new post under Objective 1, Watch and Learn. I do want you to point out the different icons. This is an assignment. Look at the different options you have. It's telling you what kind of an assignment or material or so much more is there. So this is an actual assignment. So they have a due date. You can see there's a due date of October 21st, excuse me. So next assignment we're going to do now is I have a reflection I want them to do. So the students, I want them to give me 5 things what they learned about Gmail, okay? I want them to turn in an individual copy. So this would be like me in the classroom back in the day when we all sat together in the classroom, and I would pass out a sheet to 25 people. That is what I'm asking. I want each student, Tom, Jill, John, to fill out the reflection and then turn it back to me. Okay, that's what I'm doing. But now I'm not going to give them a piece of paper. I'm going to use Google Docs to do that concept. Okay, so that's the assignment. Each of them have their own piece of paper, and each one of them has to turn it back into me individually, and so on. That's our next assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and I'm going to go ahead and choose assignment. And this time it's called reflection. And I'll say submit. Right, 5, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the assignment. This time it's stored in Google Drive. Again, I'm going to go to my training folder that I have. I've already created these. So these are just Google Docs that I've already created. So you can see final Gmail reflection. And I'll just give you a quick look to show you what it looks like. It's just a template, right? Reflect, write 5 things you learned about from Gmail training. That's it. That's all it is. So now that you've seen it, I need to make a conscious decision on how I want to distribute them. I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to say, make a copy for each student. So in reality, I'm going to the copy machine and I'm making a copy for each one of my students electronically, right? So make a copy for each student. When that happens, then each student will have their own document that they own, they're working on, only they see it, and then they turn it into the teacher, okay? So making a copy, how I would remember that is you're going to the copy machine. You're going to the copy machine. Same thing, you choose all the due dates. I'm going to choose Saturday just so we can see different dates. And I'm going to go ahead and put that under Gmail. And I'm going to assign now. This is where I don't quite get their concept on this, and maybe it's just not my teacher hat, but it will then go in a different order. So if I wanted watch and learn to be first, I'm going to drag and drop, then reflection, okay? The next assignment is a group activity. So the next assignment is I have a slide deck, and I want them all to collaborate and work on this document at the same time, okay? I want Jill to fill out her slide. I want John to fill out his slide, and etc. But it's all on one document, okay? A slide deck is a great example of that. One example, the one agency, they did a recipe book. That would be really cool. Add your scotcheroo recipe in slide 2. Add your healthy vegan recipe in slide 5. So what they did is that they would have to assign it as everybody in the classroom to edit that slide deck. Okay, so with that group activity, so I'm going to go ahead and create, and I'm going to go ahead and choose assignment, and this time I'm going to call it group activity, complete a slide, and so much more. And then again, this is stored in Drive. And go to training, and I'm going to choose this slide deck. Just to give you a visual of what it looks like. It's just a slide, and now each one of them will have edit rights to that. So we're going to show you once I hit post, it will add the students to give them edit rights to that document. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and choose students can edit the file. So once I hit assign, that will happen, and every student will do that. And again, I'm just kind of repeating, and I'm going to assign. But the key thing on that one is everybody's going to edit and make their own recipe book. Not make their own, but they're making a massive recipe book, right? So now we've done that type of assignments. Those are, and again, you can upload files, you can do all that. But the questions that I usually get is the permission-based concept, right? How does that work? It's not so much what content you're uploading and how, it's what kind of permissions do I give them for that particular assignment and why. A quiz assignment, this is great for like evaluations. This is great for assessment value. Do they understand concept A, B, and C? So you can create a quiz. Now, I will be honest, if you have Google Forms and Classroom and you're struggling, reach out to me individually. I don't want to go into that in great detail. There are some little hiccups with that. But if you do it the following way, you're not going to have any issues. So that's what I'm going to show you how this can be done. So you can create quiz assignments, which is great. And we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click create. And I'm going to choose quiz assignments. We're just going in different order. So this time we're going to rate, oops, need to type in title. We're going to rate their knowledge. I want to know their knowledge after they taken all that information, they reflected, they did the group activity, they watched the video. Now I want to rate their knowledge of Gmail, right? That's true, right? That's a good curriculum, right? So now I want to assess them in that. So now you'll notice since I choose quiz assignment, I have a blank quiz. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on grade importing, but you do have that capability. So now I'm going to go ahead and choose blank quiz. And I'm just going to not call it blank quiz. I'm going to always do best practices. I'm just going to say rate your knowledge on Gmail. And I'm just going to, again, we're not teaching Google Forms here. If you want to learn more about Google Forms, you'll definitely want to check out my Google Forms training. But I'm just going to give you guys a little tip in case you haven't seen it. Can you have your chat on the right side? You know the answer? Yes or no. And notice I'm using yes or no, and I'm going to use answer key. And the answer key is no. You cannot have your chat on the right side anymore. And I'm going to give it 1 point. Okay. You can say, you can provide feedback. You can use correct answers. I am actually using the quiz feature within Google Class or Google Forms. Now, I don't really go over this very often in my Forms training because we don't really fall into that bucket. But if you want, I can definitely provide you a lot of help with the quiz feature if that's something you want to do. Incorrect. Nope. Use the new integrated workspace. Chat on left. So I'm giving you guys a tip. All right. So I'm going to hit save. And so now I have created a 1 question form. Obviously, this would be a little time consuming if I wanted to create a form, but you can always import, excuse me, wrong button, import questions from other forms if you want to. That might be a better option for you if you already have a form and then you're just using this as a template. Okay. So now we have this form, we've created it, we're good to go. We have this 1 question form. Let's go back to Classwork, and now we're ready to post it, and we're just gonna do 1 point value, and then we're gonna due date. We'll do Monday, and we're gonna do Gmail. Okay, so this is pretty much all rinse and repeat. You have to determine what you want to do, and now I'm going to assign. Sometimes you'll notice the name did not change. That's kind of common. It just takes a little bit for it to change. The next one we're going to do, just go back so we have the slide, is obviously if you want to learn more about that, definitely check out the learn more option. The next one that I do use a lot, I use the question option a lot. Like, give me your takeaway of that Google training. Did you learn a lot? Do you have any questions for me to follow up on? I love the question feature. It's a short answer or a paragraph style question that they can just quickly submit. And you do have the collaboration feature of comments, the students replying back and forth to each other. As I go back to the agency that uses it for their volunteers, they love the question portion where they can have some more feedback between their students so they can collaborate, right? So I can see my post if I wanted to, more of a collaborative format. Now, it depends on how you want to use it, but you do have those options for you. So we're going to go ahead and create a question now. So let's go ahead and do a question. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Obviously, I'm choosing another assignment type, which is question. And I'm going to say share takeaway or not, a takeaway or question from training, right? So now they've watched all the video and so much more. And now I want some feedback, good, bad, or ugly. You have the option of a short answer. I forgot it's not paragraph, or multiple choice. I've never used the multiple choice option, but I'm going to stick with the share a short answer, more of a collaboration feature. But that's nice too, they have the multiple choice, which must be a newer feature. So then you can write their instructions if you need to, but I think the question is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to choose this one ungraded, just to give you an example of ungraded. And I'll do a due date on Wednesday of next week. I'm going to choose Gmail. And then notice, do you want to, you have to make that decision now. You can always back and edit it, but students can reply to each other and students can edit answers. Now, I think I'm more of a collaborative environment, might let them edit the answer, but I definitely want them to reply. But if this is something you want to be more private, you obviously maybe don't want them to reply on each other. Okay, so you have some options there that you don't normally see. And then notice the same thing, the drop down is now just ask versus assignment. You can ask, schedule, save draft, or discard, but it's just a new, same concept, but just a different title in the button. And I'm going to go ahead and click ask. And then the next thing we're going to go over is the different types is materials. So materials are more of not an assignment. It's resources. Maybe, hey, they're learning about Algebra 1B, blah, 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 whatever it might be. But hey, here's Khan Academy, if you want to learn more. Here's Alex Math. Here's all those resources to learn more about Section A. Same thing with Gmail training. Here's Google Help. Here's the cheat sheet. Here's everything if you're struggling with it. It's materials to help you within this particular objective, right? So it'd be like a book, right? It'd be like going back to school, and here's your book, and I want you to learn more about fill in the blank. So it's materials to learn more about that topic. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in Classroom. I'm going to go ahead and go to materials. This is important. I usually call materials resources, and then I can provide descriptions. This also could be a great welcome message option as well if you wanted to. But I'm going to go ahead and just choose link as an option here. And I'm going to hold, please. Type in GoogleHelp-Iowa.gov as an example. You can add multiple links. I'll just go ahead and add another link. I'm just copying multiple links. So I just want to show you that you can always have more. I can then choose a Google Drive doc if I wanted to. I can add a YouTube. I could create one on the go, a docs sheet slide from here as well. Okay, so you have multiple options. Just kind of know that. Notice that this over here on the right has changed significantly. You do not have all the grading options and stuff, but you still want to make sure it gets under the right topic. So I'm going to go ahead and do objective. Same concept. You can post, schedule, and etc. And I'm going to go ahead and choose post. Now, I want you to notice the icons as well. The icons have changed. The resource looks like a bookmark, right? Looks like a bookmark icon. You've got the question. These are all assignments, okay? You have all different assignments. So this is a visual indicator to tell you what type of thing that you created, right? So that's kind of nice, just to quickly give you an idea. You can always rearrange, as I mentioned before, put them in order. Resources might be at the bottom. You've got all those. You can just rearrange them within. And if for some reason, if this belongs in objective 2, you can do that as well. But in this case, it does not, okay? So that's how you do that. The last thing I'm not going to quickly, I'm just going to point it out because we've talked about that, but going back to the teacher that has 6 English classes, right, as the same class, and then it's the same materials and so on, that reuse post concept is very helpful for those types of users. I have used it. I have done agency A 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've reused that particular post, so I have used it too. So what you can do then in Classroom, I'm going to pin this because I keep losing that. I'm going to go ahead and create, and I'm going to choose reuse post. Now, this particular account does not have very many, but if I would go to Google Classroom training demo, I could select this welcome message. I can choose the option to create new copies of all the attachments. I recommend that from time to time. It depends on your scenario. I'm going to go ahead and just select that because then it actually ties to that classroom. But I can reuse this post that I said, welcome, what is happening? Notice my Bitmoji. I can hit reuse. And then I get the same window, brings everything over. And in this case, it was in material. So it doesn't have the topic welcome, but I'm going to choose Gmail. So it's just kind of a quick way. Then you can see how to reuse the post. Nice feature, definitely a time saver. I know an agency that uses that a lot. So we're going to go back to our slide deck here for a second. Okay. I am not doing best practice for you guys today. I'm going to pin my stuff. Jeez. So we're going to go back to school. So let's pretend, let's go back in time. We're going to go back in school, and we're just going to kind of quickly go over vocab. And this is because a lot of us aren't using this for education. So it's kind of like, I don't remember what this really means. I know that sounds naive and ignorant, but it's true. Because when I train this, it seems backwards to us because many of us aren't teachers, right? So we're not used to those terminologies. So the first terminology we're going to talk about is assigned. So let's think of our 2 different roles. A teacher assigned an assignment to the student. So it's actually, if you think about it, we just get kind of hung up of the piece of paper that we used to get, and we pass, this is your assignment. So just think of it as a virtual piece of paper that is being sent to the student instead of the physical piece of paper. But that's what we're used to, right? So assigned means I have assigned it to so-and-so, to the student, okay? Now, after the assignment has been sent, we need to turn in. And you're like, why in the world am I going over this? I promise you it's going to make sense. So we've got the student and the teacher. So what happens then, if we're turning it in, the student is finally done with the assignment that was assigned. And now she's turning it back in physically to the teacher with the piece of paper. Okay? All right. So we did that. I remember turning a piece of paper to the teacher. Okay. Same concept, just same thing in Google Classroom. Now the teacher is done looking at this piece of paper and she did amazing work, or he did amazing work. What did the teacher do when you were done? The teacher returned it and put a sticker on it and said, great job, right? That's what happened, right? You got it back with your A+ and you got it returned to you. And then you went home and told your mom, dad, how amazing you did on that assignment, right? That's the process. That's what we did. So when we think about it like that, one more. This one didn't happen to any of us. I know that. It happens to my kids, believe me. I didn't get my assignment done as a student. Didn't get it done. And the teacher doesn't have it in her possession either. Okay. So in the system and in real life, it's missing, right? It's kind of stuck in worlds, right? It's not to the teacher and the student hasn't done it yet, right? It's just kind of gone. So why do I mention all those things? It's because those keywords, turned in, assigned, returned and graded, and missing are all part of the Google Classroom, okay? So I just want to point that out. We're not to the grades here because we don't have students here, but you will see those words, okay? Turned in, missing, and graded and assigned. Those are categories within Google Classroom. And what people, and I've trained this too many times too, that's what people get hung up on. They get hung up on those vocabs. What do you mean I'm returning it to them? It's that virtual world that we're in that they get hung up on. But if we think about it, how we always did it back in the day kind of thing, it all makes sense, right? We did turn in our assignment. We put it on the teacher's desk, right? And the teacher gave it back. They returned it back to you, okay? So once we grasp that concept, it will be like, aha, okay? So now that we've kind of talked about those vocabs, let's go put a student hat on right now. I'm going to change gears altogether. I am no longer a teacher, but man, I am a student, okay? The student can do the following. This is kind of a little short cheat sheet for you, but they can join, they can manage their assignments, they can turn in an assignment, which we just saw, right? Communicate with teachers in classroom. They do not have the same look as a teacher. But as when I trained this, when I've trained Google Classroom for the agency that had been the volunteers, I kept emphasizing over and over and over again to be the student. You can create a classroom and then log into your personal Gmail account and be the student, because then you understand what the students are asking you how to use the system, right? You can be both, just has to be two different accounts, okay? So I'm going to give you that look for a student. So I'm going to change accounts here for a second. I'm going to go ahead and go to Trainer 7 here in one moment. I'm going to go ahead and go to Classroom. Now, Trainer 7 did receive an email. One second, got to log back in. Oh. Okay, you'll notice this particular account has been in several different Google Classrooms, but you can see I can join from here, but I also received, under this account, as a student, I also received an email, okay? So Trainer 7 is now a student. Notice there's some differences right away. Notice there is no grades up here, right? This looks different. Might don't have a settings option up here. It's quite a bit different for the student view, okay? You can also see why we put the due dates are important. This is where, excuse me, upcoming. You have due Friday, the watch and learn assignment is there, the reflection is there. I can click view all, and there's all those things there. And look at the words that we kind of have, assigned and missing. Notice turned in is not there because this poor lad has not done any homework yet, okay? So she could go here and look at the to-do list and see what he or she needs to do, okay? I'm going to go back to my classroom, and I'm going to show you the way that I kind of think is kind of the easiest for the student is to go to the classwork page, because then it's by objective, right? So notice objective 2 is not appearing for the student. We mentioned that earlier, right? That no objective or no topic will show unless there's, that's right, work inside it. So there is no calendar one here. Also, I want to point out the visual indicator here that notice that the materials, the gray button, which looks like a bookmark, are different. They're a lighter gray. So that kind of tells them, like a visual indicator, this is a material icon. You really probably need to focus on the assignments that are due. So let's do the assignments that we're told, okay? Before I do that, though, do notice view your work. That's another place for them to go. And look at those terminologies again, assigned, returned, and missing. Now that we know what those words mean, we know what's going to pertain in there. And we'll look at that again. They do have a Google Calendar, obviously different permissions than as a teacher, and they have a Google Drive folder. Same concept, just different permissions on that particular classroom. People, they cannot add other people, but this is where I told you earlier they can communicate to students or to teachers. Obviously, there's no other student involved that has been accepted to this classroom, but you can see that they can quickly email their teacher from here. All right, let's do the very first assignment we assigned was watch and learn. So let's look at this one. I'm going to click view assignment. This one is watch and review. So the student would review this document, right? Review it. We're going to open it up. All right. Yes, I read it. Perfect. Got it. Understand. Perfect. All right. Now I have watched this YouTube video, which we're not going to do. I have, with the honest feature, right? I'm honestly saying, which I'm not, I have reviewed and I watched this video. When I feel like I have done my part honestly, I would then mark it as done. Because that was the assignment, right? That was the assignment. If I felt like I needed to unsubmit it, I could do that. I can also add a private comment to the teacher if I choose to. And I could say, hey, loved your video, right? There is no current class comments on here, but there could be. Okay. All right. So now that I've done that assignment, let's go back to the other classwork. Let's do the reflection. Now, this one was, remember, the 5 different things, and we passed out 25 different copies, right? We went to the copy machine for this one, right? We went to the copy machine for this particular assignment. So notice that submit, write your 5 reflection. Notice over here on the right, I'm under Trainer 7's account today. Notice this the name of the document. It wasn't named Trainer 7's document, right? Not only did the copy machine actually just make a copy, but they did something that students never do. Put their name on it. That's what it did. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. It's my own copy. Okay. You can see that it is my own copy. Then I could write my 5 reflections, right? I've done my 5 reflections and so on, right? Now, what would I do? I would take that piece of paper and turn it in. I can turn it in from here, right inside Google Docs. So I'm going to go ahead and choose turn in. It's going to ask me one more time, I believe. Are you sure you want to turn in that piece of paper? And the answer is yes. And now I've turned it in. Okay, you have the same thing as private comments, class comments, and so much more. Okay, let's go back to the classroom. Let's do the group activity. And I'm going to view the assignment. And I can see here, complete a slide. So now I'm going to open this one up. This one is the group activity. Remember, like the recipe example I gave you? I would add my slide. I would add my content, you know, whatever the case may be. I've done my work. Now, this one doesn't have a turn in button, okay? Because remember, everybody else is editing this document, right? Because I could have multiple people editing this document at the same time, right? I just don't have enough people to do that. So there's not a turn in one on here, okay? So you'd go back to the group activity and you'd mark it as done as a student. That gives them, letting them know that you're done with that. I've done my part. I'm waiting for other people to do it. Okay. The next one is, we did the question next. Share your takeaway. So this is like, hey, have any questions or comments on this? So now notice, share your takeaway or question. Then they could type in an answer. I didn't give you a multiple choice example, but this is, hey, I didn't understand how to do filters. Okay. So then I just type it in and you can hit turn in. Okay. And you can see in this particular case, I would be able to see classmate answers. And this is where if another user was on here, I could be able to reply to it, right? So I have your answer and then I have a classmate answers. Okay. So keep that in mind. So with that, let's go back to classwork. Let's do another assignment. We're going to rate your knowledge. This is where it was the Google form. So this is where you would do an assessment and we go ahead and rate your knowledge and you can choose the answer. Can you have a chat on the right side? And the answer is no, you cannot anymore, pretty much. And you can see, you can view your score and I got it right. Okay. So that's using the quiz feature. Then we can see then we've done pretty much all our assignments. So let's go now and view our work. And you can see that magic word that I made time for is it's all turned in. You can see details. You can see, you can always click on it and view more details for the student. Just because this is their way, it's like their own to-do list. It's like their own planner on what they've done, right? So this view your work. If you've got an end user that's struggling with it, tell them to go view your work. Okay. All right, now I'm going to change hats and I'm going to play this video real quick. And now we're going to be the teacher again. We're going to be the teacher.
You can access student work within an assignment under the Student Work tab. You'll see each student's progress for that assignment and can sort work by status, including turned in, assigned, and graded. Click on an individual student's name to see their progress on an assignment, leave feedback, or check their name to return a grade. Double-click on the assignment to review their assignment in the grading tool. Toggle between student work by clicking left and right arrows in the upper left corner or by choosing from the drop-down menu of student names. To return a single student's work or multiple students' work, use the checkbox next to their name. Want to return all student work at once? Check the All Students box and click the Return button. Students do not see their grade until you have returned it to them. And those are the basics of Google Classroom. Let's review what you've learned on the next page.
Okay, so now we took a quick tour about grades. We're just going to quickly go over the grades, just because that's just how I'm going to roll today. But I am back with the Trainer 13 account, which means I am now a teacher. So I am a teacher. The student has done an amazing job by getting all their assignments done. Okay, so we're not really going to go over the examples of missing. You're going to just see an empty score, empty box. They haven't done it. So that's kind of that concept. So I'm under the teacher hat again, and I am under grades. And this is a little bit different when you don't have a whole bunch of students in here, but I went with a more of a cleaner slate to give you a better understanding of the basics, and then you would maybe want to dive into it deeper. So let's take the very first assignment that we talked about is the watch and learn. Now, again, this is a creature of habit. How do you want to do this? I like it per assignment. How did they do per the assignment? That's how I function, but everybody's different, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on the watch and learn assignment, the very first one. And then you get to the screen that we just saw in the video. Now, trainer 7 wrote that she loved the video. She sent me a private comment. I would also get a notification on that as a teacher. But I can just see that it was turned in, right? Remember, there was really nothing pertaining that they had to physically turn in. It was just that they marked it done. You'll notice at the top, there's 2 different tabs. This is the instructions, just to give you a reference point. What did you ask the students to do? Oh, just to mark it as done. It's the honor system, right? So I could go in here and give them a score of 100. If I wanted to, I could also send them a private message. I'm so glad you liked it. Perfect. Blah, 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 blah. I could send them a private message back. Now I've kind of worked with that student, right? I put a little sticky note on their piece of paper. I tell them, great job. I graded them in my paper grade book. I've done all those things, right? Now I've graded it. I wrote a comment on it. Now I need to return it back to the student, and then it gives them the grade. If they choose to have a grade, it could be ungraded. But now I've selected trainer 7 and I hit return. I could send another private message if I wanted to. There's another option like that, like the sticker that we used to get on our pieces of paper. So now it's returned to the student and so much more, and you've done your grading. Let's go back to the grade book. So you can see now it's no longer an active green option over here anymore. But you can always view the submission. We know by now 3 dots in Google means ... Google's got more for you. Okay, so if it's over here, I can actually click here as well. I can actually return it if I wanted to and not even look at it. Maybe it was just, good job, you marked it done. Might have been a good example for the watch and learn, right? I can also go back to the reflection up here if I wanted to, or I can go directly to the student and view their submission. So in this case, I'll click view submission. This one was the actual Google Doc that they had their own copy. This is slightly different on how you can grade this. We won't talk about comment bank quick access. There's a lot of shortcuts for that as well. But feel free to look at these pop-ups or look at the resources on comment banking. But this is where if you had multiple students, you could just keep toggling back and forth and moving to the next student if you choose to. It kind of helps you just to go through the piece of paper that you would have on your desk, right? You would just flip it over. Now you're just toggling over to the next one. So you can add a whole bunch of comments. You can grade it from here as well. So I could give them $100. I can add a private comment. Good job. So much more. There's a lot of other tips and tricks, but I'm not going to go over that. But it's the last thing. I'm done. I've graded it. I've done all that. I can now return from here. You do have some other options. You can return multiple submissions if you were doing more than one. Obviously, in this case, I just did one. I'm going to hit return. Return. All right, let's go back to classwork and let's go to the group activity. Again, this is very similar to the other one where it has nothing's been turned in. It's just marked as done. So I'm just going to go ahead just for time constraints, give them a grade of 100 and 100, and I'm just going to hit return. But I could add a comment if I choose and hit return, just like putting the sticker on the piece of paper. Going back to classwork or grades, excuse me, is this one is rate your knowledge. Let's go ahead and go to that assignment. This one is different. Remember, this one was a quiz. Then we did use the quiz feature within Google Forms. So if you use the quiz feature, you can actually import the grades from the quiz. So I'm going to go ahead and import the grades. And notice then this one has now changed to 1-to-1, right? So nice, right? Again, you don't have to get that fancy if you choose not to do all the quiz feature, but you can see as a teacher, that is a huge lifesaver, right? So then once I've graded the form, I could just go ahead and return it as well and tell them a job well done. I'm going to go back to the grades, and we have one last one. This one is the share a takeaway. This is where I don't understand filters. Well, let me help you. Filters are rules very similar to Outlook, right? Whatever the case may be, can respond to them. They can go from there, and I'll say, great job. There's no grade on this one, remember? But I could say, you've done your job, and hit return. Okay. So again, you don't have to return everything. That's just kind of that's the process, right? That's what throws people off. So if I was actually introducing Classroom to my volunteers, I would talk about those 3-4 vocab words, right? Because they're like, why am I getting this email? I returned it. I turned it in for you. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that. If I'm returning it to you, it's like, great job, it's yours now, right? Because permissions also change when you return it, right? Because think about it. This piece of paper, let's go back in the real world, the old world. I gave this piece of paper to you to fill out as an assignment. Who's in the possession of that piece of paper to the student? The student is the possession. They're also the owner of the document at that time, right? So now when they return it back to when they turn it back into the teacher, who's in possession? The teacher is. Now it's back to the teacher, right? Now you've done a good job. It is yours. You are now the owner. Go show mom and dad, right? So it's kind of the permissions of the form as well change as well, the document. So it's really important to understand that. So anyway, not a huge deal with that, but just wanted to kind of go over those assignments. Other things that I will not go over, these are more advanced features, is reorder your class cards. You can take a copy Classroom, so you can have this Google Workspace one. I can actually copy the entire Classroom and make it Google Workspace 2. There is some issues with that sometimes to time. We've ran into it, especially with forms, causes issues. Depending on the purpose of the Google Classroom, you just need to be knowledge-based on that. You can archive and delete classrooms. I wouldn't maybe delete classrooms, but I definitely think archiving is a good idea. But please check out the resource before doing so, because it does change access points. Obviously, delete makes a lot of sense, and so much more. There is a great resource for teachers, Troubleshoot for Classroom for teachers, because that's usually where the issue lies. You can see there's a lot of bells and whistles within the Google Classroom, and they continue to grow with it. There is so much. I always think it's funny in August, they show up like a whole bunch of updates within Google Classroom, a lot for the education SKU. Like, yep, they're just constantly growing on that. And especially with the COVID pandemic, Classroom was really highly used. Funny story with that, if you ever really want to know about that one too. Additional resources, there is a Google Classroom course if you're really interested. You can check that out. Those 2 videos that I showed you earlier came from that course, so please, I want to check that out. Google Help Classroom. And if you've been at any of my trainings, you've heard me say Alice Keeler. I don't stalk her. I do check her Twitter feed, and I do some things with it. She's a huge education advocate using Google Workspace and Microsoft Office. So definitely check out her blog. But she does have a really good video series on Google Classroom and a lot of resources. She actually wrote a book on Google Classroom. So she knows a lot more and outside the box thinking and how you can use it. But again, we're not really educators in the sense of trying to use it in the classroom. But we do want to think outside the box. And I can tell you, I'm really like surprised in a very good way of how people have tried Classroom. Like I said, the wellness, the volunteers. I know like Colorado has used it for HR, onboarding. I have used it for hands-on training, because talking about distributing materials, what do you think tool was the best way for me to distribute materials for hands-on? It worked great. So it's a really good tool. But again, you have to know who your audience is and what does your business need. Could be used also for project management. I know we have a lot of other tools out there, but it's a one-stop shop. You've got your teachers, that would be the project managers, and you got your students that are the one that needs to do the work. I don't know. Think about it. It could be many different ways. So anyway, just wanted to let you know this is a great resource. The video will be posted on our Google Help website and our YouTube channel after it renders. Again, thank you for taking the time to join me live stream for those that are here, and for those that are watching the video at a later time, don't forget to check out the resources that we posted below. With that, I wish you guys nothing but the best and a great day. Thank you for your time.